So you got dumped on your rump, not surprised you had nothing to say to your friends the night before your birthday. But you got up and took control of the situation. Right then he wants you back without an explanation. You change your style, you change your hair, your jeans got tighter, now people stare. He bites his hand and does his something.
This episode, we're talking news and notes, new expectations for all MLBers and MILBers, thanks to the crackdown on the sticky stuff, and talking trading in Keeper and Dynasty. It's time for Dingers!
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats. What's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement. Check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see. What's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head. Please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers. Ain't no minor league. This is major. Yeah, Dingers. Let's go.
Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It's not Dylan Cousins that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out, we're delivering tips and strategies to help you live that straight up OG lifestyle. Tyler Childs joined again from the murder room by Robbie Baseball. What's happening, Robbie?
I am disappointed in Dylan Cousins. Welcome, everybody. You can find us at Dingers Pod on Twitter, myself at Robbie Baseball 1, and Ty at Turning Boss. Ask us all your fantasy baseball questions. Ty, we are going to kick right into news and notes. Dylan Cousins can be the first one. Very sad that he did not get enough time in MLB so that we could use him in our Dynasty Keeper League. So now he's off to become a footballer. Good for you, Dylan Cousins. Congratulations.
He's
bounced. Dylan Cousins is bounced, but he bounced himself. The self bounce. That's a hard one to do. Mets Joey Lucchesi.
He wants to bounce off a tackle.
That's true.
He shifted his career path.
He's going to bounce some bodies. And Joey Lucchesi diagnosed with UCL tear. Yikes. Now, we weren't high and mighty on Joey Lucchesi, but serviceable pitchers are valuable in Dynasty. The deeper the league, the more valuable. That sucks. Once upon a time, was it Brian Johnson? He signed with the Angels. Brian Johnson was he the guy that hit the home run with Tampa Bay way back when, where they like saved the seat and stuff? Am I thinking
Brian Johnson a pitcher in Boston?
Oh my goodness!
Such a generic name.
I bet you that's who it is. I was gonna say I bet you that's who it is. Anyway, I have him on the show
starting
notes.
Pitchers, right? So they'll
hey,
take
hey,
anybody
hey.
that doesn't
Come
give up
on
7
now.
runs.
Starting pitchers, come on now. You've got yourself Ohtani. But let's talk about that matchup too, Ty. Ohtani v. Gosman. I was looking forward to that one. 9 Ks over 7, I think 7 1/3 for Gosman. 9 Ks for Ohtani. Game went into 50 innings today. It was awesome. What a game!
Let me ask you this: like, you're a huge Ohtani guy. We like Ohtani here. Is it the time we start talking about Cy Young for Ohtani?
It's definitely
entering that window.
It's MVP 100%. I don't have any doubt in my mind. Ohtani MVP talk, and the fact that he's going to participate in the All-Star game, it's all good. Ohtani is good for baseball. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about what's not good for baseball, and that's the strip searches on the mound. Although I do find them hilarious. I love that guys are so pissed. They're just dropping their belts, throwing the hat, the glove down. I love it all. This is so stupid to do this in season. But we're going to talk about that after we do some more news notes.
Waiting for like the Halloween costume of like the shower.
I want someone to go
like,
and just rip the tearaway.
Like shower curtains that the guy steps into.
Oh
like,
yeah,
booth kind
it takes all the stuff off.
Yeah,
yeah. As soon as MLB has that set aside behind home plate, so you're like, oh, step in here, please, step in here. We're going to check.
Or we could bring tennis into it. You know how tennis, when the ball's on the line, they're like, oh, and the guy just walks through like an X-ray, and it bleeps if he's got foreign substance, and it's just like,
yes,
oh, and he walks through. That'd be great. Great. TV.
And then they do the good close-up. Well, everybody's already doing the close-ups, which those could be part of the problem. We'll talk about it anyway. Byron Buxton fractured his hand. Who's shocked? Nobody. So Voigt's back. Luke Voigt is back. That's very excellent. Scherzer started last night. Happy with Scherzer back. I wasn't sure who was going to be the Tuesday guy. I know in the Sunday live stream I was saying, hey, let's all consider the fact that we might see Austin Voth pop in. Well, they're going to put Scherzer in. So yeah, put Scherzer in. That Wander Franco guy looks like he's pretty good at hitting baseballs at all levels. That was nice to see last night. The home run. I know the Welsh called it from in this league. He had said something over their weekend show that he could foresee this happening. So I know he must be happy as a clam today.
Well, and I mentioned this to you before we jumped on, Robbie, but I think one of the funny things for me was watching him pimp it for a ball that cleared the fence by 2 feet. Right. So,
Right.
I think that's something, a learning curve will happen. Like that could have been one, theoretically, somebody could have jumped up and robbed that one. And here he is looking with his back to the baseball, looking into his dugout, like, look at me. And that thing theoretically maybe could have been caught by like Kevin Pillar, whatever, 2015, whatever.
Yeah. You get the right Pillar in there. You get the right, oh, geez, who's the Kiermaier? If he was playing against Tampa Bay, maybe that would have happened for him too. Some other things. We talked about Bo Burrows on Sunday. He's actually now a Twin. So, the idea of DFAing and getting him back, maybe that didn't happen. Derek Fisher, your former number one outfielder, he's DFA'd as well by the Brewers. Evan White seeking a second opinion. This nagging injury is going to continue to nag for him. Jose Quintana moved to the bullpen. Max Muncy is back. Chris Owings is back, baby. And Owings had a hot start. So I think a lot of people probably kept him. And then with all the ILs, he could have been dropped in your leagues. I don't have the information right now as to his ownership percentage. Consider him a legitimate option to come in and as the Rockies sell off. If Owens doesn't have enough at bats to Warner much in return, they might be good to just play him rest of the year and then even re-sign him for next year. You need players no matter what on your MLB team. You need players. So I know Baltimore tried a couple years ago not doing that, just having AA guys. But yeah, a guy like Chris Owings could be good. Reds have Malik Smith, Dwight Smith Jr.'s release, which that sucks. Dwight Smith Jr., former Blue Jay, probably a good contact hitter. I don't know.
How is this even possible that they need more?
Well, they're like, you know what? Jose Peraza had like a good week with the Mets. Let's go sign another version of him who's also failed drastically. Malik Smith, welcome aboard.
Think that outfielders are cryptocurrency? Like it's not a commodity. Are they
the more we get, the better. If they're calling San Francisco like, hey man, Darren Ruff, what can we do? We see he's off the IL now, which again, Darren Ruff owners, or if you're not, get ready for Darren Ruff, who's got almost a 900 OPS, batting average north of 260. He's mashing. And if San Francisco's playing well, he's just going to keep getting time. It's very nice.
Funny thing that made me laugh. I was playing MLB The Show a couple weeks ago, and a guy stepped up to the plate named Darren Ruff. It was his create his own player, but he made the guy's face look like Frankenstein, and it was just this big, oversized head with a giant jaw. Hilarious. I died laughing. It was just really funny.
Maybe that was part of the game plan.
It worked. I mean, I threw 4 heaters down the middle, and he fouled one off and then struck out, but that's what it is.
Okay.
The one thing that I want to mention really quickly, MLB announced a partnership today, cryptocurrency. Who knows what they're going to do with that? Maybe they think it's a foreign substance. Who knows? We'll see.
Start checking pictures for it.
Yeah, they made this big deal out of it, and then they're like, "We're doing crypto." Like, and how does that benefit any of us? What are you doing with that? It's very unclear.
Well, MLB's like, we know you hate all of us. We know you love the players. You hate everybody in every front office and everybody at Major League head office. But we're thinking cryptocurrency. What do you guys think? Are you back? Are you back? Can we get new fans to the game now?
Stop talking about the baseballs.
Yeah, exactly. Let us deal with this. Yes, we're suspending pitchers for foreign substances. What the Astros did was fine. Okay, let's just everyone move on. Stroman pulled early in to start last night. Looks like he's saying he's gonna be fine. Cody Bellinger is back. Keston Hiura is back. Dan Vogelbach, who we talked about, monitoring the situation with Dan Vogelbach, he is on the IL. This
is like Vogelbach in shape right here. This is what he would look like. He is. If he could cut her down a little bit. Michael Conforto's back, which is good for me in a couple of leagues where I've got him. And then the sad news, Ty, is that, and I left it for last, is Aaron Savali expected to miss at least a month with a finger sprain. When I saw the news was a finger, I was like, well, that's not bad. But now that I see it's a finger and we're talking 4+ weeks, I'm very glad that in our home league, I made the trade I made yesterday, which was I acquired Trevor Bauer. I acquired Alex Reyes, who gave up, I think, 19 runs today, but didn't take the loss with St. Louis. And I gave up Bobby Witt Jr.,
I gave up Luis Patino, a first-round pick, and a fifth-round pick. And the reason that I was fine to give up those young guys is that you can only keep one as long as they stay under either 150 at bats or 75 innings pitched. And I was pretty confident both those guys will be under that. So I thought it's a good, one of them will get thrown back into the pile anyway. But I need to stay competitive, and I wasn't sure what was up with Savale. Now the news comes out, I'm insulated, but I lost my first-round pick.
That's a big dog move.
Oh,
Caught you in the hat switch. Yeah, I wasn't letting you get away with that one.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've worn the same hat for like 20 years, and you've got 4 hats in the last 20 minutes.
And I look like the bounce guy. I think if I take
yeah, you got the
put
glasses,
the bounce guy back on.
Yeah, let's see. Let's actually. Where does he go? Yeah, it's pretty close. I mean,
I need the chain.
Yeah, you need some
and the biceps.
You need to pop it out so it flop around while you run around the bases, right?
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Definitely. So, since we're on the bar note, I think this is an appropriate segue.
Oh.
A long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle.
Yeah.
Well done.
We've been on point lately with that. I'm pretty proud of us. We've really evolved as podcasters
and live streamers.
Yeah, we had quite a few people. I think we were in double digits for a while there in the live stream, which is fantastic.
We'll take it. We're
looking for a bunch of people to just come sit and chat with us. So please do. It's a great way to get questions answered. I know Robbie mentions that all the time. He gets hit up at Robbie Baseball 1 or at Dinger's Pod, me at Tourney Boss, and we get questions all the time about what you should be doing. This is a way better place to do it because we can do it while we're drinking. We can answer the questions you need to know. We can help you win championships. So come join us on the live stream pretty much every Thursday and Sunday night. Tonight's Wednesday, but normally we're Thursday and Sundays. You can generally catch us pretty consistently that way.
Tonight worked out better because we were originally discussing possibly Tuesday, and then it just worked out better for tonight. So, so the big topic for us, Ty, tonight to cover is what can we reasonably expect if MLB is in fact going to have a full-on crackdown and all new pitchers, everyone that's in MLB right now will have to adjust, but anyone who hasn't yet touched the sticky stuff, they're not going to get a chance to touch the sticky stuff. What can we expect from pitchers both at the MLB and minor league levels moving forward? Are there signs that we can look for if somebody was a big fastball cutter guy? Like what is it that we can do as fantasy GMs to ensure we are rostering the best possible players and avoiding some players or making deals to get certain guys off our rosters over the next rest of season, let's say?
Well, I'll dive into a very simple point to start, and it's been a very common thing we've looked at. And our friend Mason McCrae talks about this all the time. And when we talk about what it makes a good fastball, the ability to run a fastball with a high spin rate so that it appears visually to the hitter that it's climbing, right? And if anyone has seen 93 miles an hour. Like there's lots of people that have seen 88, 87, 85. That jump into that 93 bracket is a totally different animal. And above that is something else entirely. I've never seen north of 93, 94, but I can tell you 93, 94 is fast. And I'm a dead red hitter. And when that fastball gets up, it is almost impossible to not swing at. If you're used to that ball,
it's just the juiciest looking thing.
Yeah, because you're used to it kind of dipping just a little, right? So visually that's what you see. But by the time you react, it actually climbed another, it stayed flat for an extra 3 or 4 feet, and that's all the difference, right? So we've seen how effective it has been at the major league level, and so with the loss of the sticky stuff, and that's going to change that back to that dip that I'm talking about. We're going to start to see that be more prevalent. So the first thing that I'm looking for from that is pitch movement, right? So I'm going back to the Greg Maddux mentality. That doesn't mean it's going to be 89, 90, still is going to be 94, 95, right? Even if it was 97 before with the spin rate. Like 94, 95 is still good. So I'm going to look at guys like Sixto with a bunch of tail, right? I'm going to look at Luis Castillo being relevant again, right? Like those kind of guys that maybe didn't have that elite stuff with the sticky stuff competing against, but now they have the stuff that's going to fly all over the zone. So that's what I want to see is everyone on that playing field, because I think there's some guys that all of a sudden found control, right? And I think those are the guys that I'm looking for to fall off a cliff. Like if, you know, a Verlander, great example. Like if he was healthy, like that was a guy that had lost it and then gained it again. And I would have expected him to possibly lose it a third time, right? So that's kind of the guys that I'm looking for. But again, like to dumb it down as simple as I can, like I'm looking for movement, period.
Yeah, and for myself, like we had somebody who asked the question yesterday on Twitter, so it was posed to the podcast, which thank you, Woody, as well as a couple of other reputable places, Saris, and I don't recall the other name off the top of my head right now. And I waited a little bit before I replied because I was hoping that somebody else would jump in and the conversation could get started. But when that didn't happen, I felt that we should start it. So I did, and I said, what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to go back to guys who I don't think live and die by RPMs. And those are the kind of guys who were not struggling with it before. So go back to your classic ace Kershaws, the guys who can just pitch. Scherzer and Verlander was specifically not on the list because of exactly that, Ty. Fears and concerns over him. Garrett Cole is somebody who could absolutely be affected by this. And that's long-term, not short-term. Now, in the meantime, Garrett Cole can sort himself out and develop some type of additional strategy that can help him to overcome this, much like we are hoping everybody can, because we don't want to see a million balls in play all of a sudden because of this, and pitchers can't, get a ball past anybody. The swinging strike rates need to stay where they are, the CSW, whatever it is, that Fast sorted out. Those are important things too, but avoiding 3 true outcome baseball is also important because you do want balls in play. You want to test defenses, but again, bunting. Brandon Belt laid down a bunt with 2 outs last night. I think scored a run in first inning. Beautiful, like fun things in baseball that can be done if pitchers who are once upon a time, right? Which is the clip in Major League where the old pitchers got like, Barbasol here, Crisco here, something else talks about Vagisil. Yeah, thank you. Varsol. That would hurt. But anyway, so yeah, it has all these things on, and then he's talking to Vaughn, Wild Thing, and he's saying, I can't throw it like you can, so I have to do whatever I can to get a couple extra inches. And if the ump's on me, I just snot on my hand a little bit and draw from it. That is the way it was. And that's why it was okay to get to the point that it was maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever it was, when Garrett Cole started to say, well, that these other guys passed all this wisdom down. Well, the difference is that those were pitchers who were in their 30s, 30 whatever and older, who were no longer able to throw 90, 92. Now the standard is 92. And those younger players are saying, well, like, I know about RPMs and I want to maximize those. And it could very well become like a Jose Canseco situation where you have a whole bunch of dudes at AAA level who are like, I'm just not good enough on my own. I need a boost. And, maybe the steroid for pitchers is sticky stuff. So they're still going to find a way, put it on their body some way, somehow, so that they can still do what they need to do so that they might get that opportunity. Chris Colabello is a guy that was with the Jays who had for a brief period of time was doing good things and then got caught and then fell off completely out of baseball.
And I think there's something really important to note about the next generation because, these kids have been working on RPMs since they were 15, 13, 12, 8, whatever age that Dad decided to be overly competitive.
That as soon as they had their first side session, Ty, from the moment whenever that was, they had that first pitching side session.
Yeah, I see these Facebook groups just for what I do for a living, and they're like baseball communities on whatever platform, and there's always these dads like, hey, this is my 8-year-old pitching, like, what should he do differently? I'm like, just let him throw, like, do long toss, like, let him enjoy the friggin' game. Like, having him throw 1,000 pitches off a mound to you is not what he wants to do. He wants to play with his friends. Let him do that. Let him enjoy the game, and then he'll figure this other crap out later. But the point is that these kids are going to be better prepared for the spin rate conversation because it's all they're going to know. They have the Rapsodo machines and all these other things that are available to them today. That's going to change their development. So they're not facing the same battle the veterans are right now because they're going to be mechanically prepared as opposed to, substantially enhanced. I don't know if is that a thing. Can we make that a thing?
Let's say subsistently enhanced.
Goo enhanced.
Also, yeah.
Goo enhanced. Just goo enhanced.
Goo enhanced. Okay.
All right. Or something
All
like
right,
that.
sure.
Gansed. Workshop. It. We can workshop that. Twitter.
Yeah. If anyone's got an idea as to what you would call a current MLB pitcher, and Kevin Gausman is a prime example of somebody who could very well be getting that enhancement. Trevor Bauer's a guy who talks a lot about being able to increase RPMs and do these things as somebody who thinks about it. So for him, the challenge is going to be to ensure that he is just as effective. And like to your point, Ty, about being up in the zone, it's got to still look like it's going to be there. And maybe for some of these guys, it's the pitches are just going to start to sail high, and a high out of the zone fastball wouldn't be the worst thing as they're adjusting. But what we don't want to see is we don't want to see all these pitchers start to come right down into the zone and then boom, they're just serving up meatballs because all of a sudden they can't do what they could do before. But again, these are not the 30-some-year-olds that are doing this. These are the 20-some-year-olds where their bodies are near peak for themselves and they are using this enhancement that's turning them into pitchers that they would not otherwise be.
Well, and I want to touch on Gausman really quickly because I don't believe he's an enhanced pitcher.
Okay.
I could be wrong here. I think this is like a splitter for anyone that's thrown one before is a hard pitch to control, right? Like you're throwing it out of the middle of your fingers. It's not like you're pointing, right? Like you do with a fastball grip that Robbie has on the screen right now.
Yes.
So like the splitter grip is literally wedging that baseball between those two fingers and letting it roll out of your fingers. And some pitchers let it slip out, which starts to close in on like the fork ball, right? So fork balls generally knuckle a little bit more, and the splitter's somewhere between that and a fastball, right? And a lot of good splitters get a little extra side spin. So you'll see a lot of guys kind of finish across like a sinker almost with that splitter, and it becomes this devastating pitch like Schilling and Clemens. And, all these guys were unreal at that pitch. I think Gausman's just figured out how to control it, right? And he's been able to match it with his plane. Like we've seen flashes of what Gausman could be over the years, back when he was in Baltimore, his development in their minor league system. Like Kevin Gausman was supposed to be this Kevin Gausman.
Yes.
Right? Like we're not surprised by this. He just was a team post hype guy. And
super post.
Yeah, but that's fine. Right? Like, there's tons of guys throughout history that have been that. So, we shouldn't be surprised that Kevin Gausman's this guy, no different than we were surprised Britton became elite or Arrieta was elite for a window, right? All those guys coming out of the Baltimore system were supposed to be these guys.
Well, Jeremy Guthrie was one of the ones who was supposed to lead the way and just became a steady Eddie starting pitcher, but not.
Was the other guy there?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Tillman was the other name I was trying to remember. Yeah, they had that thing. So this is one that won't get affected. Ty, this one?
Circle change.
Not just this would be your screwball, right? Because I got the side.
That's
I don't know.
Yeah, so I was taught a really interesting grip, and anyone on the live stream, you get a look here. So
maybe that's better.
I was taught more like this one. So as opposed to the traditional, I don't know if I can get this on camera.
I was gonna say you need a baseball
traditional circle. I don't have one in the office.
Here, I've got two. I'll throw one.
Yeah, right? Like so, instead of the traditional circle off the side, I throw mine like this with my thumb underneath the ball. And so there was a former Tiger, Hal Growinger, I think was his first name. And this was a cool thing. So funny enough, the guy that I was kind of my mentor in coaching was on the Tigers 40-man, blew at his elbow. But he had come to my hometown when I was really young and taught me this pitch. And so he made all of us stand at home plate and like react to this pitch. And he threw it like his arm speed was coming through at 95. And this ball just puffed out of his hand and floated into the zone. And so I fell in love with it. And it became my best pitch. It still to this day is my best pitch. But, it's kind of the same thing because I almost throw it like the splitter, but out of this grip. So what I do is I actually change the grip on my index finger and then my pinky finger. So I can cut it and have it tail inside. So I mess with guys big time with that pitch. But that's that's where you talk about the splitter. Like it's kind of the same as the screwball, to your point. Like you're getting that little bit of pronation. Yeah, pronation at the release, which gets that dipping down and in, right? So that's a pitch that I think's been forgotten, right? Because all of this inside power over the
Oh,
last
well, and
decade.
it's all there it is. It's all this, and like that's why you need the grip. Like that's why you need the
Like
sticky stuff.
you're wider than that. So like
Well,
guys
I'm
that are,
trying. I'm trying to.
well, but if
My dingers won't do it.
but on a minor league bus, if you have a
Like,
splitter pitcher,
ugh,
like you're gonna
there.
have two things on a minor league bus: guys that want to throw the splitter that are literally spending the entire road trip jamming that baseball into their fingers,
And trying to get that to
and then you have a catcher with a fork stabbing his hand so that he loses all the feeling. Right? That is like an old catcher's trick, right? Because like catching 100 on the corner, if you don't catch it in the mitt, like that hand's basically broken. So you have no feeling as a major league catcher. That's just what it is, right? So something to think about though is, again, it's that little bit of extra dip that we're going to start to see
Right.
again. And the reason we've seen it go away though is because of the RPMs on the fastball. It's not because the splitter's less effective, but the splitter's less effective when it's not matched with a second pitch. And that's the reason. I've talked about splitters forever, Robbie. You know how much I love the splitter. It's my favorite pitch, right? It's everything that I want to see in a game because it's such a great pitch if you can locate it. Like Dolis has a great splitter in Toronto. He just can't match it with his fastball. That's his big problem. He doesn't have the fastball control. Gosman has found it again. So for me, like if I'm a pitcher with giant hands right now and I'm 17, I am teaching myself how to throw a splitter, period.
I would go one step further, Ty, and I would say forkball. I would say get your damn dingers all the way around. If you're young, like you're saying, young with huge hands, get yourself to that point because that's the simple correction where then when you all of a sudden go back just a tiny bit to do your splitter, it's going to be a lot easier to command. So as from a coaching standpoint, but because you can't do that with everybody, you can only do that with a certain hand type. That's why a lot of guys who they say if they're smaller pitcher, smaller body, what they're
splitter's not an option.
Yeah, which I think is what they're realistically saying is that their hands aren't going to be able to do it. Even though I can contort my hands to do things right now, I would have to train so hard to be able to do certain things on a daily basis like this.
I broke my middle finger when I was young, so it tails off a little bit towards my ring finger. And as a result,
it's like entering a cheat code.
Yeah, like I can throw it like a normal fastball and it'll just slip out between my fingers and do almost a natural splitter. So my catchers hate me when I throw down and in. And when I get underneath of a ball, watch out, it's coming at your head. Like I've had multiple guys get hit in the chest trying to swing at a baseball just because when I get underneath of it, it's dangerous. The reality is though, those are the things we're going to start to see change. We're going to see pitches change, right? Slider is the dominant out pitch right now. Like there's no questions about it. We're exiting the era of the slider, right? That's what we're doing. Slider's still going to be a pitch. There's still lots of guys that are going to throw it. It's still going to be a great pitch. It's just not going to be the pitch, right? Which is what it is now. It's fastball, slider, changeup, right? That's really all we see in baseball today. Some of the elite guys throw a cutter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Little pointer there. Elite guys throw a cutter. Figure it out. Everyone should throw a cutter. It's a great pitch.
Well, that's one of the things that turns Halladay around. That's something that guys pick up.
Bieber's throwing.
Well, I was just gonna say you've got not specific to pitches, but you've got like elite guys like DeGrom, Bieber, Cole, Scherzer, Sonny Gray can I guess be in that conversation as well about guys who can really get it done, and they're the ones who are going to have to lead the way by not being affected. Now Bieber's injured right now, but they're going to have to be the guys who are not seeing these massive changes. And to your point about Luis Castillo can now possibly benefit from this. He's already had a little bit of an improvement from his early season struggles. And it's not that he hasn't been himself. It's that others around him with lesser expectations have been more, and it puts more of an emphasis on the fact that he's not right yet.
Well, and the thing that there's two things that no one's talking about yet as a result of all of this. The first one is the funny one, and I'll start with that one, is the catchers on the one knee. Right? If we get away from pitching at the top of the zone, you're going to have to see catchers that have been taught to catch on one knee learn how to play the defensive side of that position again. Right? And it's going to be a really relevant piece of the puzzle. Like guys like Gary Sanchez already struggle with pitches up in the zone.
Right.
Like it's going to be a nightmare if everything's dipping again. And so that's the first thing. The second thing And the one that I think will have a greater impact is the launch angle conversation, right? So we've spent the last 5 to 10 years worrying about launch angle, and that's been to match the spin rates and to match the 6'9" guys throwing 97 downhill, right?
Yep.
So if those guys can't keep that 97 flat anymore and it starts to dip again, that launch angle is going to have to come back down a little again. And now we're going to be looking at spin rate coming out as opposed to launch angle. So there's a kind of a counter punch coming here, and it'll be interesting to see because for me, like splitter, changeup, curveballs, like those are the guys that I'm looking to be the surprises. There's going to be guys that are just going to be obvious talent, right? They throw the ball hard, they locate, they've got a good pitch. Like that stuff's just natural. Like that's not going to be. But we're talking about edge cases. Those are who's going to be impacted. And so for me, I'm looking at guys that throw good hooks and good changeups primarily.
Yes.
And then I'm always looking at splitter guys. So that's just is what it is.
And that was my idea. My thing that I like in the first place with a pitcher is I like somebody who can throw a curveball. I like somebody who's got a good change, because the one thing we know about a good changeup at the MLB level is that if you can have a good changeup, meaning you've got enough variation in speed, the angle to come out is the same as the fastball, you are going to be deceptive, which means the hitters are going to need to find something else to go with, which means you can get a lot of strikes on a changeup. And that's a good way to get ahead in the count. And again, it's a good way to stay ahead. And if you've got good movement on your fastball and your changeup and your angles coming out the same way, it's going to help. It's going to make a difference. But then there's a guy like Matthew Libator in the minors, who I think sky's the limit now, because the guy's got an awesome curve. Yeah. And the fact that as long as he's a lefty, as long as he can make sure he's releasing everything right about the same, because now all the hitters are so much more intelligent, they're going to be looking to see, okay, this is where he's throwing from. So this is most likely the pitch I'm about to see. As long as he keeps it tight, he's going to be able to fool a ton of guys with changeup and a ton of guys with a curveball. And that curveball is going to probably be like Brett Cecil's, where it just does the big old whoop and then just drops right in. Oh, I love that.
And you mentioned him earlier in the show, the one guy that actually I think will benefit from this, and he's not my favorite guy, so you'll kind of laugh at this, but it's Savale, right? And it's because he has the cutter curveball matchup, right? So where I think Savale is going to get beat up as a result of this, and where I've always said Savale should get beat up, is on the four-seamer. He still throws it 25% of the time. It's primarily up in the zone. And honestly, like, just sit on that pitch, guys. Like, I don't know why more major league teams are not hunting his fastball. I don't understand it. But if you watch the heat maps, like I like to do, fastball up in middle away a little bit, cutter outside corner, curveball down middle almost away, right? So those three pitches are in alignment from the release point, right? Like there's a pattern there. So like that's what I like to look for. And I think these are the kind of guys. Does throw a splitter, so that's exciting.
So that's exciting. All right.
So there's lots of stuff here to like, but that's what I'm going to be looking for. I'm looking for pitch patterns and the ability to actually pitch, right? Because throwing, great, but throwing is for the bullpen. Pitching, I think we're going to get back to an era where you have to be able to do multiple things other than just rip fastballs.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So when I'm looking here, Ty, I'm looking at our Dingers Prospect SP rankings, and I've kind of mashed it up a little bit because I've been working on guys that are graduating and things like that. But we've got guys at or near the top of the list, like Michael Kopech, Sixto Sanchez, Devi Garcia, Spencer Howard, Libator, who I mentioned earlier, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, both with Seattle, Matt Manning, who's now up. I think second starts tonight, or was today. Maybe, yeah, it was today. He got his first win. Congratulations, Manning. Daniel Lynch, Grayson Rodriguez, Nick Lodolo, Manoah, who's up with Toronto, Josiah Gray with the Dodgers, DL Hall, Shane McClanahan, Luis Patino. I can go on. Hunter Green, who had himself a day. They should not have to go through a transition where they were able to do things up until 2 weeks ago or up until they get to the show, and now they can't do it anymore. So as far as like the sticky stuff on their hands, that should not have been part of their game to this point, because they were prized possessions. And a thing a scout would look for before drafting a guy, before teams promote, is, well, are they going to be able to do it at the next level? And if they're like, well, I think he puts shit on his hands or in his glove or whatever it is, well, that's going to actually hurt the player, because then the team's going to say, well, then he's not that good. He's just deceptive in the sense that he's, using an illegal substance, but also that's how he's getting guys out. So we need pure pitchers, which is really what the prospect pool is, heavy with, are the raw skill guys. It's once they get up to the show and they either need to compete or, it's just introduced to them as something that they can use, which with Garrett Cole, this is like the Canseco thing again. It wasn't until he met up with Verlander. Now I'm making Verlander Canseco with sticky stuff. I love it. It wasn't until he met up with Verlander that Cole really turned it around or turned it on, whatever you would say. Was that a conversation about some stuff you can do from one veteran pitcher to a young emerging pitcher with good stuff? Or was that a guy talking to another guy about how he throws a little bit of this crap here, or he does a little of this or a little of that? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter. Garrett Cole's an amazing pitcher. It's just like, this isn't going to affect the prospects is what I was kind of getting at with that.
Well, but I think it will a little though. Right? Because like, look at a guy like Jesus Luzardo, like the Jesus Lizard has struggled
my goodness,
mightily. And there's got to be something associated with this.
Okay, so you think there could be cases like that then?
I think so. I think there's going to be a bunch of them, right? Like, and I think there might be a reason we haven't seen Devi Garcia. I think there might be a reason Ryan Weathers disappeared, right? I think there's a reason he was sent down.
Maybe Garrett Crochet just decided the other night he was going to try without using anything and then just serve up 4 runs in 1 inning and just screw me. That's what he did. He screwed me.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely guys here. Like Josh Fleming probably needs sticky stuff.
He's going to be just fine.
Yeah, a strong breeze in that building though, and it's going to float out of the zone. But I think there's going to be lots of guys that just disappear, right? Guys that were on the sticky stuff and just it goes away. And we won't know who those guys are going to be. It's almost impossible to predict who was part of that. We can look at some scenarios and some likelihoods, but to say that, like let's say a Tristan McKenzie, like he's the guy that theoretically could fall into that window. Like, is he going to disappear because of this? Maybe, but we don't know that. We can just say he's got a fastball and a slider, and it's likely that we're going to see some drop off in production. That's all we can really say with certainty.
Right. Whereas a guy like Luis Patino, who's, what did we call him? Thundering Oak, Luis Patino, who's got the ability to adapt. He's with the organization that should absolutely be preaching to talent pitchers. It's kind of like, Mighty Ducks, the original, Ty. When Bombay is trying to teach them how to cheat to win, and what is his name? And Charlie Conway, he won't do it. He won't take the hit, act hurt, and get indignant. He won't do that. And that's Tampa Bay to me. Tampa Bay is saying talent, and preach and do things this way, that way. So I feel like there will be some organizations that already have that talent that's not going to see a blip. Now, again, anybody that comes up, just talk to the Kansas City development staff. Whoever's in charge of promoting pitchers is probably fired by now. But going through Lynch, Cower, Bubik's now having a little bit of an issue. Singer, it has not been a smooth transition, right? That's 4 guys who have come up who have not just sailed right into regular starting pitcher roles. And then Miami's kind of had the inverse. They've been able to have Trevor Rogers, who everyone said, oh, who cares? It's Sixto Sanchez time, baby. And now Trevor Rogers is just cruising. He gave up 2 in the first inning tonight, and then looked like he settled down against the Jays. But yeah, I mean, there are organizations who will do things a certain way that we're not going to have to worry about them. So I think we're going to see a ton in the offseason of people who say, well, in June, when they started cracking down, from June to end of season, these 10 pitchers had this, big change or big shift or something like that. And they may try to pin it on them. But I think it's more realistic that the ebb and flow of baseball is going to take over than a bunch of guys who are no longer able to put stuff on their hands. Because a guy like Glasnow, who comes right out and says, well, that's why I got hurt.
Yeah.
I got hurt because I couldn't grip the ball like I used to. Okay, well, that just tells me that you were never as good as we thought you were, which might be one of the reasons why Pittsburgh was like, sure, we'll trade you.
Well, but
we're struggling.
That's fair. Like, I don't think it's fair to.
But that's to take that dart. That's all.
Yeah. But
to
I don't
say,
think it's fair to say it's like steroids, though, right? Like, which is where that conversation will lead to. You might not mean it like that.
Okay.
But
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the
I'm not. I'm
conversation.
just saying that like you do something. You would not be where you are without it. That would be a steroid. I'm saying
Yeah.
you got here. This is to make you like a
Better.
superstar instead of a star or a a regular SP4 instead of the SP6 type long relief guy.
Definitely.
Like it's that minor enhancement.
Well, one of the things that I liked that I heard last week, and it was a valid point, which is, the hitters complaining about all this stuff, and the response from a manager, and I forget which one it was, had said, "Well, I want you as a hitter to go up there without anything on your bat and without batting gloves, and let's see how you do." Right, and it was a really valid point, to at least dumb down the conversation. Now, where it's very different is it changes the execution of it, right? So if there's a reason the hitters aren't allowed to put anything on their barrel, because it would change the spin rate of the ball, and then it would change the length the ball would fly in the air. So that is the comparable to what we're talking about with the pitchers. So I'm 100% for this as a pitcher. I've never even been exposed to what sticky stuff would do. So I'm pretty confident that I would throw it straight into the ground because it would just stick to my hand.
Just stick to, yeah.
I might throw it at my foot. Like I would be that guy. Like I was the kid in grade school that ended up with the glue stuck to my fingers, and then I'm pulling the glue apart because I glued my hands together. Right. So like I can't use this stuff. Like responsibly.
I have a lot of pine tar that comes off of the trees in my yard. So everybody who knows, anybody who's been listening for 2 weeks knows I took down a couple trees. Well, they're still sitting there waiting because I thought I knew how to sharpen a chainsaw. It turns out I don't. So I had to send it to the boys at Old Home Hardware in Wellesley, and they're going to hook me right up with a nice sharp chainsaw blade. So when I get that back tie, I will cut it, and maybe I will see if I can get a little bit of that gum together. Because I know when it gets on the car, it is sticky, tacky crap. Yep. So on a baseball, it would be something else.
Yeah, and on a bat, don't get me wrong. My bat is dripping with pine tar. Like, I mean, I get up there and my bat looks like Jorge Posada's helmet. And so like wow. That thing is
shout out.
Yeah. So I appreciate what it does. I mean, half of it for me is the smell. Like that just I enjoy that. It puts me in the right mood.
It's a baseball smell to you?
Yeah, I just need to like some Barry White. Oh yeah, we're gonna hit some home runs.
Well, that's like when I go in the shop and I cut a little piece of cedar, and I'm like, it just smells nice. It smells like I'm in my shop about to do some woodworking. So, okay, so on that side, then Ty, we don't want to say watch out for this pitcher. You've already said these are the types of pitchers, meaning the pitches that they throw that should be safe. So
look for control, movement, and things that are going down in the zone. That's
perfect.
That's what I think the evolution we'll see.
Okay, so there we go. So let's put a bow on that because we've talked about that one. Good. I think we did a good job covering that. Now I've got a couple of prospecty type questions to see how we want. Oh, well, I guess I bet you I deleted that. Oh no, I deleted one of the things I was doing, but that's okay, Ty, because I always have another spreadsheet open.
Control Z.
No, I don't. I have another spreadsheet that's open. So I've got some of our pre-season. Oh, you're on it. Perfect. Yeah, you're in it. The Dingers prospect production rank. So we've got a few that we may as well go through tonight. And we're talking about sticky stuff. We're talking about pitchers. So why don't we go through and just say how we're feeling about some of these guys this year? And this is, some of them are hurt. Some of them have not yet got a shot. Some of them, have been perfectly fine MLBers. So we'll just say SP ranking for them. Is that the easiest way you think to do it? So if they're just lighting it up, they're an SP1, and then if they're hurt. But otherwise, performance, and SP5 would be the last guy that we want. Because it's a 5-year thing, no one's toast here. But we had Sixto Sanchez as our number 1. He's been hurt. He's getting slow played. Nothing we can do about that. Ian Anderson was our consensus number 2. How you feeling about Ian Anderson right now? He was your number 1.
Yeah, I still think he's going to be the number 1 on this group, just given 5 years from the beginning of this season. Like, I just think he's going to be the most consistent. I think there's going to be a couple guys that will probably be better in years 3, maybe 4 and 5. So I do think Ian Anderson, if I was a betting man, 5 years, still my guy at number 1. Love Sixto, but we're already seeing why I didn't put Sixto 1, right? Yeah. He has that volatility. He also has some minor control issues. Everybody
Yep.
saw a small sample of control last year and is assuming that that's the forever Sixto. The stuff just moves too much. Like nobody can throw with that much movement at the major league level and not get drilled. Like it's just not possible. So you're either going to get drilled or you're going to be out of the zone. And I think he's going to be out of the zone. So I think he's the best pitcher on this list today, in my opinion, Sixto.
Okay.
But I'm not ready to put him at number 1 in a 5-year window. So
yeah, and
still
again,
SB1.
we are talking about what we think they're going to do on your MLB for MLB production over the next 5 years. So that's the 2021 season through to the end of 2025. So Sixto Sanchez already a step behind due to injury. Obviously, when he comes up, he's right back in the game. And again, it's not a sprint to the end of 2021. We're talking to the end of 2025. But when they do graduate, they're off this list, which we will set up. I think probably after the draft goes down, we'll maybe reset the table and get rid of a bunch of these guys to see who is defaulted to move up, and then whether we feel comfortable with the fact that they have by default moved up. And that's why people should be re-ranking, because a bunch of guys have graduated from the list, not because it's June and you think, hey, let's go do another 300 player dynasty ranking.
We need people to click on our website. Please,
yeah, 100%.
Review our dynasty ranks, right?
Yes. Which again, if you want to see ours from preseason or mine, RobbieBaseball.com, that information is still there, and it hasn't been updated because it shouldn't be updated just yet. Sorry, Ty, what were you going to say before I went off on the next
guy on the list? It is part of a couple guys that I personally ranked higher on my list because I thought we were going to see a full season of production, right? So I'll name the 3 or 4 that are notable here.
Okay.
Jesus Luzardo is the first one that we're talking about. I expected him to give us consistent innings this year. Haven't seen that. Quite the opposite, actually. So for me, he's plummeting down the list. We mentioned him a little ways back about the sticky stuff being potentially a deal breaker for him. So I can see that going away a little bit here. Another guy a little bit further down the list that we obviously haven't seen this year's Forrest Whitley, who I thought we were going to see in the major league rotation. AJ Puck, same conversation. And I had a 4th one, but I can't remember. Oh, more.
Sorry,
I
was going to say I just reorganized it based on how we had our shared ranking before the season. It was mixed up for whatever reason. Number 3 on the list was Kopech. Kopech has come in, done exactly what he was supposed to do this year, which is pitch at the MLB level healthy. And then he got hurt. So he did that for a bit. That was fun. Casey Mize, up and down. Matt Manning is possibly going to go through the same thing. This is part and parcel with a guy going on to a team that's not going in the right direction. Like if anyone's getting called up,
going to be fine.
Yeah,
and
Matt Manning, for reference, Ty, I think we talked about this on Sunday night. Matt Manning was traded in the 30-team points league for Zach Greinke. I think that was the trade. And it was like 2 years of Greinke or 6 years of Matt Manning. I think that was Eflin was one. That's what it was. Eflin was what we talked about. Somebody had asked me about Eflin. And then I saw a trade that was Zach Greinke. So 2 years of Greinke, rest of the season next year, for 6 years of Manning. And I was like, holy crap, that Eflin deal would have crushed that. I would not want to be taking on Zach Greinke right now and thinking, especially in a points format, thinking I'm going to have 20 plus point per game potential for that period of time. Whereas Matt Manning could easily put up half of his starts, 18 to 20 points, and the other half could be single digit, could be learning curve. But then you still have 4 more years of Matt Manning. Like patience is key in Dynasty. And I'm sure some teams that are overachieving this year are doing silly things like selling guys like Matt Manning, because KC's had a few guys that have come up and struggled. No starter that has come up has been absolutely amazing, torn the doors off the place. But then there are really good guys who are just not getting credit.
Well, and once the lockout is over and Detroit signs a bunch of guys, like those guys' value is going to go through the roof, right? Mm-hmm. Like, right now they're a candidate for a major league shortstop, and there's several of them that are probably going to be available. This offseason.
I think 6 of the consensus top 10.
But yes,
right. But at this moment in time, 6 of the top 10 look to be free agents at the end of the year. So back to the pitcher stuff here, Ty. So Mackenzie Gore, we just know it hasn't been going well at AAA, so there's no point in crapping on him.
5.0 ERA in the minors right now. People need to know that. Like,
they need to know.
Are super high. Like, he's at the upper minors. Like, we need to see some improvement here.
This is not going to be a
and
sell situation because you're not going to be able to get what he was worth once upon a time. This is 100% hold, and you might want to feel a
I
little
would
bit.
sell. I'm going to go different
Well,
on that one, Robbie, because I'm going to sell because he's still up at the top of the pipeline for prospects.
I will say this: I have him in one league. It's a keeper league, but you can have up to 20 minors, so it's keeper plus. There's a whole bunch of scenarios within it. Anyway, and in this league, the person who had the team before I took it over basically traded an entire draft class, which was like first, second, third, fourth, and fifth round picks, and something else of note to acquire Mackenzie Gore. Now, then I took over the team, and somebody told me that, and I was like, geez, they really blew this then, like that, what a dumb decision. And now as I see, Gore not putting it together at all, I'm like, well, for the sake of this other guy, you can't trade. I can't trade Mackenzie Gore just because of what this other dumbass did. I need Mackenzie Gore to come up and like have 10 good starts before I can make a deal. Well, anyway, some of the, Sharks are nibbling around, the guys who know they don't have a shot this year and are like, hey, would you like a little boost here? Hey, would you like a little boost there? And they are offering sheer trash in return. And I think that's the problem with Mackenzie Gore right now, is that you are looking, people who own outfielders, not Tyler Naquin, but outfielders
That's
like
gross. Is that literally what they're offering?
Well, it was Yastrzemski was one of the offers, was like 1-for-1 Gore for Yastrzemski, and I'm like, come on. But some of the other ones are more of the note of just like guys who you would not want to roster, but at the end of the year, the line's okay. 70 RBI, 70 run guys, but they're somewhere like 250, 260 average. So they're by no stretch an impact, and absolutely in a keeper league, a throwback. Whereas Mackenzie Gore is supposed to be a prized possession. So anyway, I feel like I'm kind of stuck with him.
Yeah, but you're not giving him up for garbage. Like what I'm saying though is like if you're trading him as an SP1 pipeline guy, right, you should be getting an SP1 or multiple SP2 through 5 guys, right? So like let's do an example. Like if you were to get as a competing team, you're giving up Gore and you get say Savale and Spencer Howard, right? Like that's a trade.
I would do that. I would do
all
that
day, every day, right? But like that's 2 guys that are SP2s, SP3. Howard may never ever be more than an SP4, right? But that's the kind of package you're looking for for a Gore. And if you're not doing it, you're right, you hold them. But like I just think you're not going to have more value over the next 2 years, because I think he's going to slowly fall back. And this is what I've always said about Gore, to an SP3. That's where I think he's going to be. I've said that many times, that I just don't think he's an SP1, which is what everyone's kind of banking on him being.
Oh yeah, like I think the original idea of his peak is like, a sub-3 ERA, 200 Ks over the course of 30 starts, racking 20 quality starts, like a top legit guy. And the problem is that from a early age prospect as an 18-year-old, people were like, whoa, he's got stuff I haven't seen before. He's got this look, he's got this approach, he's got da 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 da. Well, he was also 18 and then started to get coached, started to get taught, the pro way, the this, the that, and then he had to make slight adjustments. Anyway, another guy with those, Nate Pearson.
Mark Appel, is that who you're talking about? Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, he is. Nate Pearson is another one of these disappointing on the cusp type dudes. Pearson should be Toronto's next starter when they need another guy.
Growing strain.
What? He's hurt again?
Growing
Oh my
strain.
God. Oh, bounced. Give him the bounced.
I mean, I don't want to bounce him.
I did not.
Growing.
He might get another injury. I was not aware that Nate Pearson had the potential for this much injury. Like it can happen to anybody, right? You can bump into a golf cart at batting practice. I don't know. Anything can happen, right?
Well,
but for a guy
think,
to just always be hurt, my goodness.
I think this is a little bit of the case of he's putting on muscle right now, and they're having him work out, and he's not quite there yet. And because I think they discover, and I think I remember Davidi talking about it at some point, there was a muscle imbalance, and they didn't want to bring him back up until he was there. So I think he's putting some weight on. And we see this in other sports, but less so in pitching specifically. I think you're just going to see a bigger, stronger Pearson when he does get there. I also think he's trying to find that third pitch, right? Like, honestly, like I think this is one of those excuse me injuries. If I'm
that's what you're thinking. Okay. All right. Well, let's just do something a little fun here, because we're, closing in around an hour for this. So let's just go through. I started looking here at number 30, And I'm just going to talk about some of our prospect pitchers who are up, who we can just say how the season's gone. So Dane Dunning is a guy who's up in Texas. He was our 30th ranked prospect pitcher. Dane Dunning is doing exactly what happens when you are on a trash team. He is putting innings. He is getting blown up the odd time, but he's pitching. He's getting through. He's no longer a prospect. Next year he's going to be on straight SP ranks. Dane Dunning certainly has not exceeded expectations. So would we say he is SP 3-ish right now? And I don't mean that in the sense that like he sucks. I mean, if he's good, he's an SP1. If he's trash, he's SP5, right? So SP3, that's what's going to happen to Dane Dunning right now. That's where he is. Correct. So
SP3-4, that's exactly where he belongs.
Yeah. Okay. Shane McClanahan, similar situation with Tampa Bay, SP3 guy. Good to see him up though, right?
I think he's going to be a 2. He's going to be a 2.
So you think there's improvement there? Jackson Cower next up on the list, 35th for us.
That's a tough one for me. Location guy though, right? So that's the first guy we've talked about really. That's
and hopefully he sticks around in KC. Hopefully he sticks around.
He's in the right ballpark, right? So if he was in Cincinnati, I'd be a little more concerned. But I think in
he's no Jeff Hoffman.
Yeah, with a history of good defense. Right, that's one mention for Jeff Hoffman.
I just had to do it. Even though when we're recording, it's harder for us to continue our thought when the other person's talking. I think on the recording end, like when you're listening, it sounds good when I just throw the Jeff Hoffman in when you're talking about. I think it just flows well. So until I interrupt it like this.
Yeah, definitely. I think Cower will figure it out, but I don't think he's ever going to be front of the rotation. I think he's going to be really serviceable SP4. Like that's what I think, and have blips of SP2 like every SP4 does, right? Just having moments of brilliance.
David Peterson with the Mets. Josh Fleming with Tampa Bay. I would say he's exceeding expectations.
Yeah, without a doubt. He's pitching like an SP2 and has SP7 stuff.
And to our credit, mind whoever you want to give it to, because you have Josh Fleming ranked. That's got to be wrong. That you
higher
have
than you. Higher than you. Yeah, you were about 30th? To pat yourself on the back.
I was 100%. It's because David Peterson you don't have ranked, and I have 36. That's why.
And to be fair, I nailed David Peterson on that rank.
That's funny. But anyway, the idea is that with Josh Fleming, he's just a nobody guy from nowhere, where people just don't care. Right. So that's why it's fun when you can go for these dynasty guys. Ryan Weathers.
But really quick, Robbie, just for anyone that is more recent new listener to the show, like it's exactly why we made this list the way we did. Like Fleming's giving you production today.
Boom.
Right. A lot of these guys on this list are still a year away or more. And so Fleming, although might not have 5-year production on an average year perspective, but on a total scale, he's ahead of a lot of these guys. So that's why I had him as high as I did.
Yeah, like a healthy, whatever. When I do my rankings, I kind of look at if a pitcher in a regular 162 game season is starting 30 times, the best case scenario is 200 plus innings. That's your big guy. Well, we now know that is rarefied air in MLB. So I've dialed it way back to say, is it reasonable to expect somebody who comes in and gets 30 starts to pitch 150 innings if they're an effective pitcher? Yes. Okay. So Josh Fleming is not 150 inning guy. Josh Fleming is 100 inning to 150 inning type guy. So that means that over the next 5 years, I'm expecting him to be north of 500 innings. Well, if he's tacking them on early now, that's just a good thing. Because I can see him still chugging along. Now, of course, it was Danko Jones. It was a sticky situation. It could have been worse earlier on, but now he's gotten through that, and he's not necessarily starting, but he's following the opener. He's pitching his innings. He's doing what he needs to do, and he's taken it in the face the odd time, but he's still pitching to a good degree. Ryan Weathers, up and down tie. You mentioned him earlier. Braylon Marquez with the Cubs. He's been up. He's been down. Hunter Green, not yet. Seth Corey with San Francisco, nada. Genesis Cabrera, no, not yet. Clark Schmidt, who's 43rd ranked for us. That's the 24-year-old Yankee prospect. No. Tanner Hoke has not yet come up with Boston. But again, we've talked about this with Boston. The overachieving.
He had a spot start, though. He had a spot start.
This single? Okay.
Yeah.
So, but, whatever. Boston's overachieving, and that's almost holding him up. Because they're able to do it. Kyle Wright has been a pleasant surprise with Atlanta.
No,
what?
It's a 9.35 ERA right now.
Who's the guy I'm thinking of with Atlanta that's been good the last month?
Well, they
Uh,
brought up the other kid. He got hurt. You got Yanoa,
no, not
Bryce Wilson.
Is it Bryce? It's Bryce. It's Bryce Wilson. Bryce Wilson's been good the last month. My
Yeah,
apologies
Bryce
on Kyle
Wilson
Wright.
pitched game 3 of the NLCS last year. It was quite good.
Yeah,
And I think overachieved in that scenario, but definitely was a positive.
a good final month. Logan Webb with San Francisco. He's just doing. He's good because San Francisco is good. So that we've talked about him earlier in the year. There are a few guys who have not yet had their opportunity. Like Bryce Jarvis is a little further away. Jackson Rutledge with Washington. Edward Cabrera's 49th ranked guy. Simeon Woodrich is our 50th ranked guy. So now just talking about guys who might be on the cusp. Luis Gill is a double-A Yankee who could come up. Shane Baz has been awesome in Tampa's minors. Louis Thorpe is somebody who has been up, moving around. Dalton Jeffries. Yep.
There's a couple guys in here that are just worth noting really quickly. Hunter
Yeah,
Greene
yeah.
has also been unreal this year, right? I think for me, I've kind of made a prediction with the velocity that he was going to take a little bit longer. I'm definitely wrong there. He's going to be a product of contract suppression, but he's ready. So I had him off my list, just expecting him to be a year or two away. It could be inside of that. Just really depends on what the CBA does for him. Just something to note. Simeon Woods Richardson, I think we're going to see this year. I think Toronto's bullpen's so bad. I think we're going to see him in September.
Oh,
I really do. I really do. I think he's been good enough in the minors. I think they're going to put him on the September roster just for the sake of the experience. I don't know that he'll be on a potential if they get their playoff roster, but I could see him in the bullpen in September.
Wow. Okay. An interesting guy to note here is Cole Stewart. This is somebody that, because we do the big league focus, we talk about him in the off season, and I hate when I feel like I've talked about a guy too much, which is what happens with, Austin Nola. So it just became a joke. Jeff Hoffman. So it just became my mantra. And then, other guys of their ilk where we just mentioned a lot. So Cole Stewart was a guy I didn't try to harp on. Former Oriole, ended up with Chicago. Now he's getting starts. Cole Stewart is a pleasant surprise. He was ranked 60th for us. We both had him between 53 and 64 in our rankings, but he is getting it done. And that's exactly what we want. A guy that's on the other side of that is TJ Zoik, who we both thought would get innings. And it looks like he's getting pinched a little. Like he's still getting innings. He started in the last 2 weeks or whatever, but that was an isolated start. It hasn't been as clean for him. Logan Allen with Cleveland, was he demoted or injured? I know he wasn't.
I think his whole
good.
career blew up. I don't know. Like it was okay. Not good for Logan Allen.
Yeah, we had him at 63, and at 64, Franklin Perez with Detroit was in there.
Also blown up.
Yeah, and injured again. We talked about him on a previous episode. And then a lot of guys who just haven't had time this year.
Right? Like he was
DFA'd off and then signed back so he could get off the 40-man. Robert Duggar and Zach Lothar, who were both ranked 75th and 76th respectively, as well as Kyle Muller, who had a start yesterday. They have all been up. So that is a Miami who turned into a Seattle guy in Duggar. Then we've got Zach Lothar with Baltimore and Kyle Muller with Atlanta. They've all been up. Those are wins for us when you're talking about those names, because those are guys who essentially just need the innings. So for Muller, it's good that he's up. Atlanta just has not hit their stride yet, but that was a doubleheader that Muller got up.
Is there anybody from left field here, Robbie, that we can kind of give some tips on the listeners who have knocked it out of the park and maybe are skyrocketing up our board? Because I have a couple. So I'll lead off.
Yeah, please do. I'll continue to go down. So right now, just so everybody knows, we're in the upper 70s for expected production over the next 5 years. So Ty's going to tell you a few of the dudes who he sees making a big jump up. I'm going to go take a quick dive and see who I find.
Cade Cavalli is skyrocketing on every board. He's a first-round talent. Like, it's not surprising. I think he's just moving faster than a lot of people expected, myself included. He's going to be higher on my board in the Washington system. There's obviously going to be a clearing of veteran talent at some point in time in that system. That's the big guy. Bobby Miller, we're going to see probably at some point this season in LA. You talked about him a lot in the preseason, Robbie. Mason also mentioned him when he was on as a guy that he really liked. I still believe very firmly that Bobby Miller is a bullpen arm, an elite bullpen arm, but I very much believe he's a bullpen arm. There's guys here that, I talk about. I think Asa Lacy is at our 82 slot. I still think he's going to follow the Mackenzie Gore pathway, where he's just not as good at the major league level. Still a reasonable guy, just not elite. And then Drew Rasmussen is a guy that went to Tampa Bay, is going to be a part of their bullpen moving forward. I could see him being the next great reliever in that bullpen. Tampa doesn't acquire relievers if they don't have a very significant pathway for them. So I'm paying attention to that. He's had 1.2 innings with Tampa Bay so far, struck out 4 over his last over his last 3 innings. He has 8 strikeouts. So, there's stuff there. Tampa clearly knows that. So that's a guy that I'm loving right now. And, the only other guy that I think is starting to maybe be on my radar where he was very much not post-draft is Mick Abel. So I'm starting to come around on him slowly. Still a long time ahead of him in development, so I'm not really sure how far he's going to move up a board yet, but definitely a notable arm. That's kind of the group that I'm looking at.
Okay, well, I'm gonna keep going down the list here. Why don't you, if you see the guys, I'm just putting them all in yellow, rhyme off the names. So these are guys who are up, whether they're doing good, bad, or otherwise, but they're of note who we haven't talked too much about. So where's the first guy? You're like Braxton Garrett with Miami. And then if you continue to go down now, you'll see there will be a couple of guys
also in Miami.
A couple of guys that are purple. Noah Song is one. So this is a guy who has, for some reason, been just given hype, and we haven't had results. But he's being hyped, and those are the kind of guys who I think it's important to put a little tag on to see what's going on, because they're getting inflated value. So that means that they're not participating in MLB action. However, they're now being valued at a higher slot than they previously were, whether that's, good, bad, or otherwise. I'm going to give Tony Santillan, who is our 147th ranked starting pitcher, a little nod here because he's been doing good things in the minors. So it's important to note those guys. But there are guys here on this list, like at 142, we are not buying the hype of Chris Rodriguez. And what happened to Chris Rodriguez? Ended up in the bullpen with the Angels, which is a surprise and a good one, but then hurt. Albert Azole with the Cubs was ranked 139. He's up. He's exceeding expectations. Good for him. Eli Morgan was ranked 129. He's been up. He had 4 good innings yesterday, Ty. We don't need to talk about the 5th one, but four good innings.
We do need to talk about it, just for the record.
Okay, well, James Caprillion, who's at 125, has been awesome. And one of the reasons why Caprillion has been awesome is that everybody was thinking Dalton Jeffries was going to get the call up. Well, it wasn't. It wasn't him. They went with, Cole Irvin and other dudes. And then James Caprillion's now got his shot, and he's doing good things with it. JB Bukauskas with Arizona has been up. Johan Oviedo with St. Louis, who was ranked 124th for us. He's been up. There are
we talked
dudes
about him on Sunday on the live stream as well on Sunday. There's lots of arms here. And this is it, right? This is the fine line between making and not. Like all of these guys that we just mentioned, if you're in a deep dynasty league, you probably know these guys, or you should. And if you don't, you're probably not doing so well in that league. But these are guys that you should have ears and eyes on at all times. And so, the one thing I want to mention on Noah Song, he's had 7 starts, but only 17 innings so far at low A this year. And so what I see with that is that we're really just looking at a guy that hasn't quite figured out. Sorry, I'm incorrect. He hasn't pitched this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't see that.
I misread that. But what we did see at low A, when low A existed, was that he was getting limited innings. And for me, that tells me he's developing a new pitch, Robbie. So
no, he went and served in the military.
I understand that. But when he was pitching at low A, I'm saying, though, he had limited innings. So the stuff's good. The whip's 8.8, 0.88, the strikeouts per 9, 10.1, good numbers for a starter. So
that's not 2021 though, is it?
No, that's 2019. So that's pre-pandemic.
So
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So they were developing a pitch. That's what that means, right? He was going out. He was tweaking it against live batters, right? That's what you generally see that. So those are guys I like to look for though, because they usually fall down these lists because they're not getting 4 and 5 innings at the low minors like you usually see. So they fall down other people's lists, and they're great opportunities to buy. So that's why I wanted to dive into that one really quickly.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Reed Detmers has been doing well. I think it was Double A that he got assigned to. I remember we talked about him on one of the previous episodes. LJ Newsome with Seattle, not going well this year. Keegan Aiken had to start with Baltimore. I don't think he got lit up. Whoever started for Eshelman, whatever it was, with Baltimore, he got ruined today. Poor guy.
And
Nick
Tyler
Nieder.
Ivy's done for the year, right? Did I see that?
I did not see that, but that's sure, that's entirely possible. But yeah, so that's it for what we thought were going to be impact guys over the next 5 years. Now, Trevor Rogers, we had brain farted him off the list and included literally every other Miami guy. So I think that's more my fault when we narrow the list down, and I just did the old accidental delete on him in the offseason. But then we've got other guys who still had rookie consideration, like Anthony Kay, who are just bullpen guys now. So they're going to graduate off the list. Drew Rasmussen has changed from organizations from Milwaukee to Tampa Bay. He has had one appearance, right, Ty? Was that what it was? It was one appearance, and then he got sent down, you said?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so there are guys who are moving around the list, but I'm just starting to put a little bit of a highlight on them.
And there's some exciting guys at the bottom of this list too, right? Like there's arms that we haven't talked about a lot that are coming. Young guys, J2 guys. There's some really exciting arms that are about to come onto the scene and about to enter a lot of lists. So I think we'll probably talk a little bit about some of those guys in the midseason rank update. But a guy I want to give you a shout out for is Michael King. You mentioned him all spring training on this list, and he's way, way down the list here. But a guy that's been fairly reasonable for New York, right? He hasn't had a chance to really find his own because he hasn't been given a full shot yet. But definitely a guy that you picked out to have some value this year, and he has. So good on you. Wanted to give you that one because I never really.
I appreciate it. So. I'm going to get you to hold my beer here because I'm going to have a look-see because Michael King started tonight. And if you go to Robbie Baseball 1, I am now selecting 4 streamers every day on the Twitter. And what I'm doing is, aside from the fact that people continue to ask me just who I would pick between this guy and this guy in their league, I figured this was an easier way to just give everybody access. The parameters are, I'm using Yahoo. They need to be owned in 60% or less. And I absolutely try to go for the smaller ownership guys versus the guys closer to 60. Because I think that means, if you're in a bigger league, they've got more of a chance. And if you're keeper dynasty, these are also guys who are potential to start guys for you. So another factor to consider. Today, my record has been pretty good since I've gone public with it because I've been giving all year. I've been giving anybody that's asked my 2 cents on opinions and things. Some of them blow up like Josh Fleming did for me. Was it Saturday? Whenever it was that Fleming pitched, I was so pissed because I told a few people Fleming's like a lock to have a good start. I think it was against Seattle, and then he sucked. I was like, well, what do you expect? Oh, it was Sunday, I think, against Seattle. He gave up a grand slam. That happens. Like, that's something that unfortunately in fantasy sucks, but that happens. And then I think he took the loss. So, but King is one of the guys that I start tonight. So I said, I will give you 2 guys to start. I will give you 1 guy to consider, which means someone who I'm not expecting great things from, but certainly could deliver. And then a guy to avoid. So I'm picking 4. And at the end of last night, Ty, 3 days going public, I was 11-1 headed into tonight. And I had Michael King as one of my guys going up against KC, who has sucked. Now, 4 2/3 innings for King. So I gave him the, guy to consider. So not great expectations, but 4 2/3, 5 Ks and 2 earned runs. So I don't know. Would you consider that to be exactly what it is? Consider him if you can.
I mean, he's a streamer guy that if you're desperate for some innings, like he's going to give you that.
And he's not taking the loss tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this. He got hit around a little bit, right? Like his hard hit rate was a little high.
Gave up 2 in the first and then settled in.
And I mean, he gave up some taters, right? Like, where was it? Did he give up 114 miles per hour exit velo to Jorge Soler?
Everybody does that.
Yeah.
You got to throw hard to give it up hard.
Yeah, that's right. It's good. I mean, he's definitely serviceable. I've watched him pitch a couple times now. Like, at least somebody to pay attention to. The stuff's reasonable. He's going to miss it. He's not an SP3 or above. He is a SP5, and that can work sometimes. So it's a guy I'm looking for good matchups on, and that's what I would look at him as. But I think he's a guy in a victory that you need to claim because nobody talked about Michael King anywhere.
And it's not that Michael King is like a star or doing, like gonna get it done for the Yankees, but he's participating and he's getting good things. And I included him in a trade this year. I traded Arizarena in our listener league for Alec Baum and King. It doesn't sound great right now, but it could still be okay at the end of the day. So the guys that I did pick, just so everybody's aware for tonight, I picked Chase DeJong against Chicago. So the Pittsburgh guy owned 2%. I said, do not start him today. And he was not good. No win, low Ks, blah, blah, blah. King was the guy we just talked about. I said Caprillion tonight against Texas. And I said Eric Fetty against Washington. So I'm just going to quickly check Texas. The A's, 5-3 for Texas. So I'm going to say that one's probably going to be a loss for me tonight. But let's have a quick look because he was going up against Fulte.
Backtracking just a little bit too.
Never mind. He had a quality start, Ty. Quality start, 4Ks. Take the win on Caprillion.
Did have 4 hits today.
Oh, he's back, baby. He's back.
Yeah. So, a lot of good stuff happening in baseball. I like that the offense is coming back because I have built my home league team to be offensive. I'm hitting 350 so far this week with an OPS
nice.
that has 4 digits. So I'm losing in both of those categories, which is sweet.
But hey, as long as you can maintain, you should be good. I've got one final point and then I'm done.
Okay.
Rangel Ravello, who we've talked about on the Sunday live stream, who we've talked about within prospects as a guy to watch, 29-year-old with the Dodgers. That's now 29-year-old formally with the Dodgers. The Dodgers have agreed to sell Ravello's contract to an unspecified team in Japan's Nippon Professional Baseball League. He was batting over 400 and at AAA, mashing, and
good for you, man. Go make some money.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. This is such a crappy thing for fantasy baseball dudes where we're like, look at this like ace in the hole, put the potential ace in the hole. And he's able to go and make, money for himself, his family, whatever. And that's great that he's gone to go do those things. It sucks that an MLB team could not step up to do something, but hey, that's the suppression system. And it was so good of LA to let him go.
Yeah, agreed. And this is why I let you play in the dumpster while I look for the next superstar in the minor leagues. Because you have to deal with those sad stories. I don't. So, but
it's few and far between. But I think it's just interesting that we were talking about him.
100%.
And then this is what's happened, of course, right? But I mean, when you got your finger on the pulse, you know what's going on in the minor leagues. When something like this happens, it's like, oh, that hit hard because I picked him up in 2 leagues. Well, what am I going to do? Drop him, go look for the next guy.
And if there's anybody out there regarding the minor leagues that is willing to have Baltimore Orioles minor leaguers stay in your home, that apparently is a thing as well. So lots of good stuff here tonight. But tell us what you think. Well, I really want to hear what people are thinking about this sticky stuff thing, how it's impacted your team already, what you think it might be. We went into some good detail on some of this stuff tonight, but tell us how you're doing. Hit us up at Dingers Pod, at Robbie Baseball 1, or me at Turney Bus. But until next time, it's been Tyler and Rob here on the Dingers.